Hey, how's it going, everyone? Hybrid Toy Reviews here, bringing you another Topical Tuesday. This week's idea comes from Commander Bly of the 1313 Discord. Thanks for the idea, Bly. I love you. Thank you, Bly. So, this idea from Bly is to talk about some collector vocabulary words. This is definitely a great idea. Every day, someone buys their very first Star Wars action figure and takes their first step into a much larger world. And some of these terms might confuse you if you decide to get into watching some reviews and you're just like, what did that guy mean when he said that thing? I've had it happen. I've been talking to friends that aren't collector and I use a collector word and they're like, what? Just because out of context it's weird. So let's go ahead and run through these 12 words that I've selected. I say words, terms. And if there are collector terms that I didn't use on this list that you think that should have made the list, drop them in the comments below and maybe we'll have a part two. So, for starters, we're going to start with peg warmer. This is a common one. You'll hear people say this word every time that a figure gets announced that they don't want. It is a figure that sits on store shelves for a long time. Generally, it's something of lesser desirability or a figure that's been reissued. We'll get back to that word. But it is a figure that just isn't going to be super popular with the collectors. And every time you go to the store, you're probably going to see a couple of that guy on the shelf. So that is the term peg warmer. From there, we're going to go ahead and go to digital render. Now, this one is not as egregious anymore, but during the era of plastic free packaging, and every now and then you'll still get this, they would reveal a image not of the figure but of a model. So digital render is a digital image of a model of a figure because most figures are designed digitally and then manufactured. So before just taking professional photos and uploading them, sometimes Hasbro would just show us these digital renders. Sometimes on certain figures, we never got real professional photos, and even the photo on the box was a digital render. So digital render was a thing that was a era for the Black Series for sure. Every now and then, whenever they show us something that's not coming for a long ways out, they'll still show us a digital render, but usually you get real photos before it hits shelves. From there, this one's a fun one. I'm going to talk about traffic cone. I'm not talking about the big orange drum in the middle of the road. A traffic cone figure is a figure with a rubber skirt that hinders leg articulation. See, because it's shaped like a traffic cone. This was a big thing on a lot of older Jedi figures like Ben Kenobi, or in this example, I also used the Emperor, where they had a rubber skirt. It was terrible with the Emperor because even though that version of the Emperor didn't come with a throne, if you 3D printed a throne, he couldn't sit in it because he had a rubber skirt. You could not bend his knees. He had knee articulation, but the skirt would hold him up. Same with Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi is really good at standing there and not much else. So traffic cone, that is a design that is usually a bad thing. Okay, next word is variant. So this one is pretty self-explanatory, but a variant is when there are different versions of figures with small changes. An example I use here is of the Resistance Trooper from The Force Awakens. They had helmet variants where some were a little greener, some were a little browner. I think there was like three where there was like one was really brown, one was really green, and one was a little bit of both, like weathering. That's kind of nice because you can grab a couple of them, and then it doesn't just look like the same guy, except in this case the guy's face is shown through the helmet, so it does look like the same guy. But I digress. And you'll have that with lots of things. They've released Force Awakens Rey without the lightsaber at first, and then later they redid it with the lightsaber. But it was the same figure, and it was the same number in the line. So that is technically a variant. Up next, we have repaint. This is exactly what it sounds like. A repaint is when an existing figure is repainted to make a new character. Now, a lot of times you'll hear collectors talk about repaints as if they're lazy. That's not inherently true. When it comes to examples like the clone troopers here, all clone trooper armor is the same, minus maybe a antenna or a helmet here and there. But typically, just standard grunt troopers all wear the same armor with different paint on them. So in universe, they're repaints. So repaint is not bad. I do enjoy a lot of the repaints the line offers. For our next word or term is POA. You'll hear people say, 5 POA or whatever. And POA stands for point of articulation. It's a place where a figure articulates. On this example of Darth Vader here, I just show he bends at the elbows, at the wrists, at the knee, at the ankle, and there's just a ton on Black Series. A ton of places that you'll have articulation on an action figure, and so that is a point of articulation. Next, I'm going to talk about soft goods. Soft goods are when clothing items on the figure are fabric instead of rubber or plastic. That is always a debate with collectors. Some really like using like rubbers and plastics, and some really prefer soft goods. I'm in the soft goods boat. So if you had a character with a rubber Jedi robe, it would basically run into the traffic cone issue where it hinders the articulation. Whereas if you have a fabric cape, it's very flowy. It gets out of the way, just like a real-life fabric cape would. So soft goods are the move. However, at this small scale, sometimes they don't lay right, so they don't look as good. But usually, if you fiddle with it enough, it'll look pretty good. So I'm camp soft goods, and that's what it means. Up next is retool. When they retool something, that is when parts of an older figure are modified to make a new version or character. So in this case, this Kamino Clone Trooper represents the 2020 Clone Trooper body, and the Phase 2 Purge Trooper is the Phase 2 Purge Trooper. It is largely clone armor, but if you look at the chest, they've actually added a control box kind of thing to the lower center of the chest, and otherwise it is the exact same sculpt. So that is a retool when they modify something slightly. For our next term, it is photoreal. I love photoreal. This was an amazing addition to the line. Photoreal is a newer technology where manufacturers print face photos onto heads instead of painting them. Now, these are some of the most extreme examples. So that, like, original Episode 3 Obi-Wan Kenobi, just very rough, just, white eyes with black dots, and that was the eyes. Now, he was one of the worst paints. Now, sometimes face paints were not bad, but they've never hit like photoreal has. It's some sort of printing technology that they've never really truly shown. They've talked about a lot, but they just print a picture of the celebrity's face onto the blank head sculpt. It is amazing. It looks just like the person. These photoreal figures are just phenomenal when you get them. And it is the industry standard at this point. It seems pretty much everything ends up being photoreal these days. Up next, we're going to talk about likeness. Now, this is very much the cousin of photoreal. Likeness is the resemblance a figure has to the actor playing the character. So, in this case, the Book of Boba Fett figure looks a lot like Tamura Morrison playing Boba Fett. Sometimes you'll have characters where the likeness is really off, and it doesn't look like the actor, and therefore it doesn't really look like the character. Sometimes I'll joke in reviews when we have that about how it looks like a person cosplaying the character instead of the actor playing the character. That has happened a lot. There's been a lot of misses in a lot of different figure lines, but usually a good likeness is a great way to start off on a good figure. And for our final word for this, we are going to talk about exclusives. So an exclusive is when a figure is only available at a specific retailer. Sometimes it'll be where the figure is only available at one store, like this Knight Brother is at GameStop, and the Tibetan Station Ben Kenobi is at Target. Sometimes you'll have it where they'll call something fan channel, and then it's just not going to be at Walmart and Target. It's going to be like a comic shop and maybe Amazon or GameStop exclusive. So exclusives are just something that you can only buy at one location. That's it for my 12 collector vocabulary words, and that's where we're going to wrap up this Topical Tuesday. Thank you guys for watching. It means a lot that you did. If you enjoyed, you should leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that end of video stuff. And if you have ideas for a Topical Tuesday topic, you should leave it in the comments down below. If you drop a good one, I might just make a video on it. Thanks again. I'll catch you next time. Until then, may the Force be with each and every one of you, and goodbye.